So it finishes at Newcastle 2, Spurs 1. Much needed win for Newcastle, of course, having been on a great run so far in 2026. But for Spurs, it's a complete disaster. And it is a real conversation now about them and the possibility of being relegated. 5 points the difference between them and West Ham, but to say they're in free fall would be an absolute understatement. Take a look at their results from their last 17 Premier League games. They've won only 2 of them. 9, of course, between them. They've just taken up those 2 victories in those 17 matches. For more, Robbo, Nadem still with us. Nadem, they are in a relegation fight. There's no hiding it, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only positive they can take from today was the fact that United scored that goal as late as they did. Because up until that point, with the as it stands thing, it was a 3-point gap between themselves and a team that's in the bottom 3. You know, it's not something we'd expect to be seen from a Spurs side. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not something that we should be seeing from a Spurs side who are competing in the Champions League. But I think you can see from that run of form, 2 wins in 17 is ridiculous. I think as well, you could see in the game today, Newcastle, especially in that first half, were far and away the better side, which in some ways is alarming given the fact that Newcastle's away form is almost as bad as anyone's in this league. I think it's 2 wins away from home all season. So for them to be on the front foot, to be able to dictate tempo, to take as many corners, shots, like they've come away with 21 shots away from home. It's almost like they've had a field day out there. And I think from the crowd perspective as well, it was a weird atmosphere. I think obviously they were trying to get behind their team, but there was never anything that was sustained long enough for them to really start singing their songs, to start believing in the side. And they'd be like, here's an attack, oh, the attack leads to nothing. And there were a bunch of players who at times are going off almost doing their own individual thing, whether it was Tell, whether it was Colin Wani, whether it was Xavi Simons, and it never felt like a cohesive sort of like group of players coming together to try and do something successfully. So many individual moments were required. And then at the end you hear the boos, and it's not the first time we've seen it, and it might not be the last time either, because, you know, lo and behold, their next game is against Arsenal at home. And I think the only upside for them is the fact that because they've been knocked out of the FA Cup in the 3rd round, they've got 12 days now to get ready for that game, and hopefully for Thomas Frank, get some players back to fitness, because that's going to be one hell of a job in that next match. Have
you got 12 days to find a new manager? Get him in quick, and then he's got some time ahead of Arsenal?
I don't think they will. I think they'll just stay steadfast. That's kind of the vibes that have been coming out. I think if you ask Spurs fans, they would take a change now, but I think the board have made a decision, and they're probably going to stick with it at this moment in time. There was a couple of good results early in the season, and one of them was at Man City when they won, and you thought, organisation, clever counter-attack, might be something different about Spurs here. And since then, there's been nothing. Yeah, the Champions League, they've done great. I don't ask me how. don't ask me how, because they're a terrible team. But apart from that early season, there's been nothing. They've been battered by teams at home. I mean, they've got themselves back in some games that they should never have got back into or been allowed to get back into. And the worry for me is that if the players don't think they're in a relegation battle, I don't know what the mindset is in the dressing room, but if the players in that dressing room think they're, you know, Billy Big Potatoes and they're not in a relegation battle and they're too good for that. I think Don played in a West Ham side.
Yeah, there was always too good to go down, wasn't
it? Too good to go down. A lot of good players, and you get dragged into it, and you get dragged into this mediocrity, and you get dragged into this. That you can have momentum in wins and momentum in defeats. It's not really much different, you know. The mentality, you know, when you're winning every time, you think you're going to win. And when you're losing at games and you're not playing well, it's hard to get out of a mindset what's going to happen next week again. But if the players in the dressing room don't understand that they're in a relegation dogfight, they'll be in it quicker than they think, and they'll be closer to the bottom 3. They got to understand that playing football's probably not going to get them out of this next 4 or 5 weeks. It's scrapping. Because they're not going to outplay Arsenal next game out. They're going to have to scrap and fight and defend and counter-attack and close the ball down. And if they don't do that, and Forest and Leeds keep picking up points and West Ham keep picking up points, before they know it, they could be in the bottom 3. So for me, it's not just, and I know they've got a lot of injuries, but for me, it's a mental side of these players. They're in the position that they don't believe they should be in, because they think they're better than that, but they're in that position. If they don't have the mental fortitude to pick themselves up from defeat after defeat. They'll never get themselves out of this mire. Never. So we're going to learn a lot about these Tottenham players as well as the manager, because they're in a dogfight. And are they the type of players that will get you out of a dogfight? That's the big question.
Well, and is it the manager to get you out of a dogfight, Robbo?
Yeah, well, the atmosphere at Spurs at the moment is toxic. And I fully agree with what Craig's saying. It's the mental side of the players. But I'm not sure it's complacency. I think they're playing with massive fear now. They go out onto that pitch at White Hart Lane, and the crowd are onto them after 5 or 6 minutes. They're onto the manager. They're playing with massive fear. And in the second half, when they think, oh, there's nothing to lose now, we just throw caution to the wind, and they start playing much better. But when they're trying to do things tactically, which the manager has given them, but there's no way the manager can stay on at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, because the crowd don't want him. And the crowd don't even want Spurs to win at the moment, because they want him out as quickly as possible. And that's a massive thing for Tottenham supporters to say. They were desperate. I know a couple of producers at ESPN who are Tottenham supporters are desperate for him to go and almost don't want their team to win so they can get him out and start afresh. But that's a dangerous way to go, that's for sure.
But Robbo, we've all three of us have played at big clubs. And we've all played under pressure, and we've all had bad results. Nobody never has bad results. You can't just win. There's always a downside. There's always a dark side. There's always a looking at yourself and your teammates in the mirror. If they don't have the ability to handle or absorb the pressure and they're in hiding mode, they shouldn't be playing at that level. Because when crowds bay for whatever it is, you know. And they do. And we had it at Chelsea. And certainly had it at Celtic in front of 60,000. You only had to draw a game, and they wanted to lynch you at that club. That's how passionate they are. What do? Sit in the dressing room and cry. And the only way to change that is to go out and get results.
Don't you need the right manager, maybe? Fresh air to come in to kind of appease the crowd, change things in the dressing room. Because at the moment, that's
but the manager's not going to appease the crowd. The crowd, because he's not going to.
If you've got a crowd who don't like the manager, which this crowd clearly don't.
They don't like the players either.
But if you can at least try and silence that criticism for a bit, to give you time to breathe, to give you time to try and get enough points to get out, it's worth that gamble to get rid of Thomas Frank, bring in someone now to the end of the season, get you across the line, and redress.
I agree. I think he was great at Brentford, but being great at Brentford is what it is, right? They're a small club, done a great job, that football club. But I think when you look at Brentford now, you take a step back and go, sold all the best players, have a rookie manager in Keith Andrews. They're around 6th or 7th in the league, playing much better football. And so maybe Thomas Frank wasn't this sort of messiah for Brentford. He did. I'm not taking it away. He did a good job there. But maybe this job at Tottenham is just too big for him. And I know there's a lot of injuries. I know he's got a head case as a captain who's now got 3 games left of a ban. I understand all that. But there's been scenarios at the start of the season or just after the decent start of the season where the players, Spence and Van de Ven, remember, they were ignoring him coming off the pitch. Something's not right. And it seems to me as well that these players, as well as the supporters, might be quite happy to hang Thomas Frank out to dry. Well, that's the way it seems to me. Because how can you play so poorly in so many first 45 minutes of games?
So are we in a situation, Nathan, where it's pretty much anyone but Thomas Frank to maybe take over in this window before the Arsenal game?
I think you're being charitable calling it a window, to be honest, because there's still so many issues as well. And the amount of time, like for the position of it now, like the players have to buck up. As Craig said, it's not just the manager, it's some of those players. You can hear when certain people get the ball, the crowd are not having them. They're not keen to see them. They just don't have any belief in them whatsoever. And you can bring a new manager to the sideline. You know, it could be the biggest personality ever. It could be like the rah-rah guy that says, come on, get stuck in. But if players don't marry up to that, then it's not going to work out anyway.